Guys, Matt Reeves' dark, gritty, and hyper-focused film The Batman ranks among the Dark Knight's grimmest and grimiest outings in any medium ever. Stuffed to the brim with fantastic performances, incredibly beautiful cinematography, haunting horror elements, and a tremendous musical score. The question is, for all that it does well, is The Batman a perfect film? Well, let's talk about The Batman.
What's black and blue and dead all over you?
The Batman is basically an endurance test of one long investigation against three different competing foes in Batman's rogues gallery. The Riddler has surfaced and has begun brutally murdering members of the Gotham elite. Carmine Falcone pulls the strings of the same elite, and it seems that every member of the higher authority of the GCPD is in Falcone's pocket. But how these people are connected and what event began all this is a mystery that Batman has to unravel over the course of this 3-hour film. Let me get this out of the way. This is one of the bleakest and most dour Batman outings you have ever seen. There can be an argument made that by the end it feels like there's a sense of hope and inspiration, but that hope and inspiration still comes as a minor respite for all of the darkness that comes beforehand. And dark indeed this story really is. It's a testament to Matt Reeves' writing and directing prowess that despite this film coming in as a PG-13 film, it really actually feels like an R-rated film at times. Like, you see a lot of people say that for like marketing purposes and shit like that, where they're like, oh man, this film will push the PG-13 rating to its limit, and then it never does. This feels like a film that genuinely pushed it to the limit. This oppressive, brooding tone, the harsh and gruesome violence of Riddler, and the background themes of assault and domestic violence is damn intense. For kids, this is not. What is equally as remarkable, though, is this film's darkness doesn't feel like it's coming at the expense of a good story or good themes. Like, it's not dark for the sake of being edgy. Rather, it's edgy for the sake of actually telling a good story and actually executing on it in a way that makes you feel like you're enjoying the time. There's a very, very, very cool moral quandary to this film that previous Batman films have just never really explored to their fullest. I don't want to explain exactly what that moral quandary is because it spoils one of the best moments in a film that is stacked with best comic book superhero movie moments. But suffice to say, this film actually asks a question that most Batman fans have been asking for a long, long time.
I got you! I got you!
To take a page out of Chris Stuckman's book, I swear if I see one more Twilight meme about Robert Pattinson, I'm going to lose my shit. Robert Pattinson was always an inspired choice as Batman. Way before anybody saw a trailer and they were like, oh, maybe he'll actually be good. No, he was going to be perfect before that. Anybody who saw Cosmopolis, anybody who saw Good Time, anybody who saw The Lighthouse, anyone who saw The Rover knew that Robert Pattinson was going to be a great choice as Batman. And his physical presence is so effective that he comes off almost like the antagonist in a horror film, stalking in from the shadows where we hear him way before we see him. And plenty of filmmakers have described Batman as almost like a horror character or like a slasher from the 80s, but no one has managed to quite pull off the feeling like Matt Reeves truly has. This Batman feels like a genuine force of nature, a dark specter of the night who pops out when you least expect him, and Pattinson just sells that physicality in every single scene. The way he just towers over people, the way that just you feel his punches and just your gut, the way that he just physically dominates every scene is incredible. Now, an argument could be made that Pattinson's Bruce Wayne will leave some fans wanting, and yes, that's definitely true. If you go in expecting the Bruce Wayne of the Silver Age or from Christopher Nolan's days with the Bat, then you will walk out of the Batman being pretty disappointed. But for those that like the Bruce Wayne from like Azzarello or Miller, you'll be just fine. He's just a very emotionally fractured and apathetic Batman, and there's no false screen of charisma or charm. He's just browbeaten into emotional repression to the point where the persona of Batman is so synonymous with Wayne that he hasn't figured out yet how to differentiate them. It's a take on Bruce that I personally loved, but it will not be for everyone. Paul Dano was an inspired cast as well for the Riddler, channeling just these great amounts of batshit crazy, terrifyingly psychotic, and distressingly intelligent. I mean, Batman doesn't even really beat him by the end, and it feels just so good to get a Riddler who is scary, intelligent, and just a phenomenal villain. And speaking of scary, if Batman is a horror antagonist, then Riddler is the antagonist's antagonist. The way that cinematographer Greg Fraser shows off where he is through incredibly subtle lighting, blocking, and focus racks is just, chef kiss. And when Riddler does strike, it's terrifying. It feels like a fucking serial killer thriller, which, I mean, makes sense since it's obvious that Matt Reeves was heavily inspired by filmmakers like David Fincher, Stanley Kubrick, and Orson Welles. Also, I have to mention her, and I feel like I wanted to talk a little bit more about her, but this video is already going to be super long. So Zoe Kravitz was stupendous as Catwoman. Now, I wasn't expecting much since, to me, Michelle Pfeiffer will forever be the best Catwoman, like in my opinion. But damn if Kravitz doesn't make me question that standard now. The story does a great job of showcasing a Catwoman who's incredibly talented and physical, but emotionally torn between her secret life and the life that she wants. She goes through some pretty heavy shit in this film, and Kravitz sells that emotional vulnerability with some heavy-hitting action scenes that more than earn her a spot in the comic book Hall of Fame.
I don't care what happens to me.
It's only gonna get worse for you.
Whoa, take it easy, sweetheart.
Now, I already briefly mentioned it earlier, but this is a gorgeous film. I mean, despite taking place at night for like 85% of its runtime, Greg Fraser and Matt Reeves managed to make this iteration of Gotham look so unlike anywhere else in the world, with just an insane attention to detail, lighting, and depth. One thing in particular about the cinematography that I loved is how Fraser utilizes the verticality of Gotham to make all the characters feel small. Not insignificant, just small. Every character feels like they're doing so much to try and change things, and yet the cinematography almost never makes the protagonists feel as large as the story as it does with characters like Falcone, Penguin, and Riddler. And the way that Fraser uses objects like windows, glass, streetlights, steel beams, and walls to create this natural blocking and untraditional framing is fantastic. It gave me a lot of Orson Welles vibes, and I am so here for it. I mean, I could seriously talk about the cinematography for like the entire damn video, but that's not what you're here for. Briefly, Michael Giacchino's score is... there's no other word for it. It's perfect. The utilization of Ave Maria, the distant strings and organs, and just the haunting piano usage give this film a feeling of melancholic majesty and grim gothic stoicism that no Batman film has managed to connect with. Like, no offense to Hans Zimmer, Danny Elfman, or Hulkenberg, but I think Giacchino's score takes the cake for me as the best Batman soundtrack we've had so far. Now, I would love to spend 30 minutes talking about the entire film and going into spoilers and talking about all the amazing references that Reeves managed to pull off, but we need to move on and not spoil this film for people, so let's just get to the conclusion. The Batman is basically an indie film with a Hollywood budget. It reminds me a lot of Todd Phillips' Joker with the extensive use of artistic cinematography, spectacular natural lighting, and attention to detail that most films can only hope to achieve. It feels like a genuine passion project for the entire cast and crew, and that passion bleeds into every single frame of the film to the point where if you know you're seeing something you just know you're seeing something truly special. Matt Reeves has crafted something just different, beautiful, haunting, dripping with atmosphere and talent. It's so meticulously well crafted that it almost does it a disservice to associate it with other superhero films by calling it a superhero film. This is art, and it's 3 hours of my life that I will gladly trade to see again and again. For all of those reasons, I'm going to give the Batman a very easy 10 out of 10. Sure, there are moments that will subjectively change your viewing depending on what you expect. It's long, it's bleak, it's different, and it's deep, but if you like those things, you will love this film. So thanks for checking out the video, guys. Be sure to let me know in the comments down below, what did you think of the Batman? Have you seen it yet? Have you not seen it yet? We'd love to hear from you. Be sure to leave that comment, like I said, like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, check out our other content, and I'll talk to you next time.